A simple booking error brought two strangers into a steam-filled room. But what happened next changed both their lives forever. The mountain resort looked like something out of a dream. Anna stood at the entrance, her suitcase in one hand and a crumpled reservation paper in the other. She had saved for 2 years for this trip, 2 years of working overtime, skipping dinners with friends, and telling herself that one day she would do something just for herself. That day had finally come. The lobby smelled like pine and lavender. Soft music played somewhere in the background. The receptionist, a kind woman with graying hair, smiled warmly as she handed Anna her room key. "You're going to love it here," she said. "The spa facilities are world-class. Don't forget to try the steam rooms." Anna nodded, though she wasn't really listening. Her mind was somewhere else, trapped between the life she had left behind and the unknown days ahead. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago. 3 months of learning to sleep alone, cook for one, and stop checking her phone for messages that would never come. This trip was supposed to help her find herself again, whatever that meant. Her room was simple but beautiful. Large windows overlooked the forest, where autumn had painted everything in shades of gold and red. She unpacked slowly, hanging up clothes she had bought specifically for this trip. New clothes for a new chapter, her sister had said. Anna wasn't sure she believed in new chapters, but she was willing to try. That evening, she decided to visit the spa. The steam room seemed like a good place to start. According to the brochure, it was supposed to relax the body and clear the mind. God knows she needed both. She changed into her swimsuit, wrapped herself in the plush robe the hotel provided, and made her way downstairs. The spa area was quiet. Most guests were either at dinner or exploring the nearby town. Anna liked it that way. She had booked a private session specifically to avoid crowds. The attendant checked her reservation and pointed her toward a door at the end of the hallway. "You have the room for the next hour," she said. "Enjoy." "Enjoy." Anna stepped inside, and immediately the warmth enveloped her. Steam rose from the heated stones, creating a thick mist that made everything look dreamlike. She could barely see 2 feet ahead. Perfect. This was exactly what she needed. A place where she could disappear, even from herself. She settled onto the wooden bench, closing her eyes and letting the heat seep into her muscles. For the first time in months, she felt the tension in her shoulders begin to ease. The steam wrapped around her like a blanket. She breathed deeply, in and out, trying to focus on nothing but the present moment. That's when she heard the door open. Anna's eyes flew open. Through the thick mist, she could make out a figure, tall, hesitant, clearly as surprised as she was. For a moment, neither of them moved. "I'm sorry," a man's voice said, deep, genuinely apologetic. "I thought this was a private booking. They told me I had the room at 7. Anna glanced at the clock on the wall. It was 7. "They told me the same thing," she said, pulling her robe tighter around herself. An awkward silence followed. The man stayed near the door, as if debating whether to leave or stay. Anna felt her heart racing, though she wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the surprise. Maybe it was something else. "There must have been a mix-up with the system," he finally said. "I can go talk to the front desk." Anna considered this. Part of her wanted him to leave. She had come here for solitude, for space to think. But another part of her, a part she hadn't heard from in a long time, was curious. "It's fine," she heard herself say. "We can share. The room is big enough." She couldn't believe those words had come out of her mouth. Sharing a steam room with a stranger? This wasn't like her. The old Anna, the careful one, would have insisted he leave, but maybe that was the point. Maybe the new chapter required doing things differently. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Yeah," she said, surprising herself again. "Just stay on your side." He laughed softly at that, and she found herself almost smiling. He moved to the opposite bench, keeping a respectful distance. Through the mist, she could only see his outline. Broad shoulders, dark hair, the posture of someone carrying his own invisible weight. They sat in silence for a while. It should have been uncomfortable, but somehow, it wasn't. There was something oddly peaceful about sharing space with someone who was equally lost in their own thoughts. No expectations, no small talk, just two people existing in the same warm, misty world. Anna closed her eyes again, but she was acutely aware of his presence. She could hear his breathing, steady and deep. She wondered what had brought him here. Was he running from something too? Or was he one of those lucky people who took vacations just for fun? A few minutes passed. Then, quietly, he spoke. First time here? She opened her eyes. Yeah. You? Second, he said. Came here last year when I needed to get away from everything. Figured it was time to do it again. There was something in his voice that made her want to know more. A tiredness, maybe. Or a loneliness that matched her own. Did it help? She asked. Last time. I mean, he was quiet for a moment. For a while. But real life has a way of catching up, doesn't it? Anna knew exactly what he meant. Yeah, she said softly. It really does. Another silence fell between them. But this time, it felt different. Less like two strangers avoiding conversation and more like two people who understood something without needing to explain it. The steam continued to rise around them, blurring the boundaries between his space and hers. When the session ended and they both stood to leave, their eyes met properly for the first time. Even through the mist, Anna felt something shift. A recognition, maybe, or a possibility she hadn't been looking for. They walked out together, neither saying another word. But as Anna headed back to her room that night, she couldn't stop thinking about the man in the steam room, about his voice, his laugh, and the feeling that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't quite as alone as she thought. The next morning, Anna woke up thinking about him. She tried to push the thoughts away while she got dressed, telling herself it was ridiculous. One shared steam room session didn't mean anything. She didn't even know his name. By breakfast, she had almost convinced herself to forget the whole thing. Then she saw him. He was sitting alone at a table near the window, a cup of coffee in front of him, and a book lying open but clearly unread. He was staring out at the mountains, that same distant look she had seen on her own face in the mirror so many times. Without thinking too much about it, Anna grabbed her tray and walked over. Mind if I sit here? She asked, her heart beating faster than it should. He looked up, and his face broke into a genuine smile. Please, he said, gesturing to the empty chair. I was hoping I'd see you again. I was hoping I'd see you again. That simple admission made something warm bloom in her chest. They introduced themselves properly. His name was David. He was a photographer from the city, here on a break from a project that had consumed the last 2 years of his life. She told him about her work as an architect, about the divorce, about needing to remember who she was before everything fell apart. The conversation flowed easily, like water finding its natural path. They talked about books and travel, about the mistakes they had made and the dreams they still carried. David told her about losing his passion for photography, about taking picture after picture and feeling nothing. Anna understood that more than he knew. She had spent months drawing up buildings while feeling completely hollow inside. After breakfast, David asked if she wanted to join him on a hike. The resort had several trails, and he knew a good one with views that were supposed to be spectacular. Anna hesitated for only a second before saying yes. What else was she going to do? Sit alone in her room and overthink everything like she always did? The trail wound through the forest, climbing steadily upward. They walked side by side, sometimes talking, sometimes just enjoying the silence. The air was crisp and clean, carrying the scent of pine and earth. Leaves crunched under their feet. Birds called from the branches above. At one point, the path became steep and rocky. David offered his hand to help her up a particularly tricky section. His grip was strong and steady. When they reached the top, he didn't immediately let go, and she didn't pull away. They stood there for a moment, hands connected, both pretending not to notice how right it felt. The view was everything he had promised. Mountains stretched out in every direction, their peaks touching a sky so blue it almost hurt to look at. They sat on a large, flat rock, sharing the granola bars Anna had brought and the water David carried in his backpack. "Can I tell you something?" David said, breaking a comfortable silence. "Of course. I almost didn't come on this trip," he admitted. "I bought the ticket 6 months ago. But as the date got closer, I kept thinking of reasons to cancel. Work commitments, money concerns, all the usual excuses. The morning I was supposed to leave, I sat in my apartment with my bags packed, seriously considering just staying home." "What changed your mind?" Anna asked. He looked at her, something vulnerable in his eyes. "I realized I was tired of being afraid of taking breaks, afraid of slowing down, afraid that if I stopped moving, I'd have to face how unhappy I actually was." He laughed softly, shaking his head. "Pretty heavy for a Tuesday morning, huh?" Anna felt tears prick her eyes. "I understand that more than you know," she said quietly. "I was afraid to come here too. Afraid of being alone with my thoughts. Afraid that I'd realize my marriage ending was somehow my fault. Afraid that I'm not strong enough to start over." David turned to face her fully. "You seem pretty strong to me. You don't really know me," she said, but she was smiling. "No," he agreed, "but I'd like to." They stayed on that mountaintop longer than they should have, talking about everything and nothing. By the time they made their way back down, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. They stopped at a small restaurant in the village near the resort. A cozy place with wooden tables and candles that flickered in glass jars. Over dinner, the conversation deepened. David told her about his ex-girlfriend, about how they had wanted different things and neither had been brave enough to admit it until too much damage was done. Anna shared stories about her marriage, about the slow erosion of connection, the arguments that became silences, the day she finally accepted it was over. "Do you regret it?" David asked. "Getting married, I mean?" Anna thought about this carefully. "No," she finally said. "I regret staying as long as I did after I knew it wasn't working. But I don't regret trying. We had good years before the bad ones." "That's a healthy way to look at it," David said. "Ask me again when I'm not drinking wine," Anna joked, and they both laughed. After dinner, they walked slowly back to the resort. The night air was cool, and without discussing it, David draped his jacket over her shoulders. It smelled like him, like cedar and something else she couldn't quite name. They took the long way back, neither wanting the evening to end. When they finally reached the lobby, David turned to her. "Would you want to do this again tomorrow? Spend the day together, I mean." Anna's practical side warned her to be careful, to maintain boundaries, to remember she came here to heal alone. But her heart had other ideas. "I'd like that," she said. That night, as she got ready for bed, Anna caught her reflection in the mirror and barely recognized herself. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold and the wine. Her eyes looked brighter than they had in months. She looked like someone who had spent the day laughing, who had shared stories with someone who truly listened, who had felt a spark of something she thought she'd lost forever. She climbed into bed thinking about David's smile, about the way he listened when she talked, about the comfortable silences they shared. Tomorrow seemed impossibly far away. For the first time since arriving, she wasn't dreading being alone with her thoughts. Instead, she found herself excited about what the next day might bring. The universe, it seemed, had other plans beyond solitude and self-reflection. Sometimes healing didn't mean being alone. Sometimes it meant being brave enough to let someone new in. Anna woke before her alarm, which was unusual. She had always been the type who hit snooze 3 times before finally dragging herself out of bed. But today was different. Today she had something to look forward to. She and David had agreed to meet for breakfast again, then spend the day exploring more of what the resort had to offer. Anna took her time getting ready, choosing a comfortable outfit but also making sure she looked nice. Not trying too hard, she told herself, just making an effort. There was a difference, wasn't there? David was already waiting when she came downstairs. He stood when he saw her, and the smile that spread across his face made her stomach flip in a way she hadn't felt in years. They grabbed coffee and pastries, deciding to eat outside on the terrace despite the morning chill. "I have a confession," David said as they settled into their chairs. Anna raised an eyebrow. "Should I be worried?" "Probably not." He laughed. "I just wanted to say that I haven't enjoyed talking to someone this much in a really long time. Yesterday was one of the best days I've had in months." Anna felt warmth spread through her chest. "Me too," she admitted. "It's strange, isn't it? We barely know each other, but somehow it doesn't feel that way." "I know exactly what you mean." They decided to spend the morning at the resort's art studio, where guests could try their hand at pottery and painting. Anna had never considered herself artistic. Despite working with design every day, architecture was different, she always said. It was about function and structure, not creative expression. David, surprisingly, was terrible at pottery. His bowl kept collapsing, and he ended up with clay everywhere, including somehow in his hair. Anna couldn't stop laughing, and soon they were both making a mess, more focused on enjoying the moment than creating anything worthwhile. The instructor, an elderly man with paint-stained fingers, watched them with an amused expression. "You two remind me of my wife and me when we were young," he said, always laughing at everything. The comment caught them both off guard. They exchanged glances, neither quite sure how to respond. Were they giving off that kind of energy? The thought should have scared Anna, but instead, it felt oddly natural. After cleaning up from their pottery disaster, they walked through the resort gardens. The landscaping was beautiful, with stone paths winding between flower beds and small ponds. They found a bench near a fountain and sat down, enjoying the peaceful sounds of water and bird song. "Can I ask you something personal?" David said after a while. "Depends on the question," Anna replied, half joking. "What made you finally decide to take this trip? You said you'd been planning it for 2 years, but something must have pushed you to actually go through with it." Anna was quiet for a moment, considering. "My sister," she finally said. "About a month ago, she came over to my apartment and found me crying over a photo album from my wedding. She sat down, took the album away, and said, 'You're not moving forward because you're afraid to let go of the past. But the past is already gone. The only question is whether you're going to let it take your future with it.'" David nodded slowly. "Smart sister." "She is," Anna agreed. "She told me to stop waiting to feel ready and just go. Said I'd never feel completely ready, but I had to go anyway. So I booked the flight that same night, before I could change my mind." "I'm glad you did," David said softly. Their eyes met, and Anna felt that pull again. That magnetic attraction that seemed to grow stronger every time they were together. She wondered if he felt it too, or if she was imagining things, reading meaning into moments that were just friendly. For lunch, they drove into the nearby town. David wanted to show her a small cafe he had discovered during his previous visit. The place was tucked away on a side street, easy to miss if you didn't know where to look. Inside, it was cozy and warm, with mismatched furniture and walls covered in local artwork. They ordered sandwiches and soup, sharing bites of each other's meals without thinking about it. The conversation continued to flow, touching on deeper topics. They talked about family, about the pressures of career and success, about what it meant to be truly happy versus just being comfortable. "I think I spent years being comfortable," Anna said. "My marriage, my job, my routine. Everything was fine, safe. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being happy. And I didn't even notice until it was too late." "It's never too late," David said. "That's what I keep telling myself. Anyway, every day is a chance to choose differently." After lunch, they wandered through the town's small shops. In a bookstore, they debated over their favorite novels. In an antique shop, they laughed at the strange items people had collected over the years. In a gallery, David showed her how to really look at photographs, pointing out composition and lighting in ways she had never considered. "You really love this, don't you?" Anna observed. "Photography, I mean, even if you're struggling with it right now." "I do," David admitted. "I think that's why it hurts so much. When something you love starts to feel like just another obligation, it's like losing a part of yourself." Maybe you just need to remember why you started, Anna suggested. What made you pick up a camera in the first place? David thought about this as they walked. Wonder, he finally said. I was amazed by how a single moment could be captured forever. How light and shadow could tell a story. How the ordinary could become extraordinary if you just looked at it the right way. When did you stop feeling that? Anna asked gently. When I started caring more about what other people thought of my work than what I thought of it. When every shot became about getting likes or making sales instead of about capturing something beautiful or meaningful. Anna squeezed his arm sympathetically. For what it's worth, I think you should trust yourself more. Anyone who can see beauty in pottery, disasters, and collapsed bowls has a good eye for what matters. David laughed at that, the tension in his shoulders easing. You might be right. As the afternoon stretched toward evening, they made their way back to the resort. Neither wanted the day to end, so they decided to visit the spa again. The steam room seemed like an appropriate choice, given where their unlikely friendship had begun. This time, there was no surprise, no awkwardness. They knew exactly what they were doing. The attendant smiled knowingly as she directed them to the same room they had shared 2 nights before. Enjoy your session, she said, and Anna could have sworn she winked. Inside, the steam was thick and warm, wrapping around them like a familiar embrace. They sat closer this time, not on opposite benches, but on the same one, with just a comfortable distance between them. The heat seeped into Anna's muscles, releasing tension she hadn't realized she was carrying. This is nice, David said quietly. Yeah, Anna agreed. It really is. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The only sounds their breathing and the occasional hiss of steam. Anna closed her eyes, acutely aware of David beside her. She could feel the warmth radiating from his body, could sense the rise and fall of his chest as he breathed. When she opened her eyes and turned to look at him, she found he was already watching her. The air between them seemed to thicken. And it had nothing to do with the steam. Time slowed down in that misty room. Every breath felt significant. Every heartbeat louder than it should be. Anna, David said, his voice barely above a whisper. Always. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the moment we met, and I know that sounds crazy because it's only been 2 days. But I can't remember the last time I connected with someone like this. Anna's heart was racing. It doesn't sound crazy, she said. I feel it too. David reached for her hand, and this time when their fingers intertwined, it wasn't to help her over rocks or steady her on a path. This was intentional. This was a choice. Their hands fit together perfectly, and Anna couldn't help but notice how right it felt. They sat like that for a long moment, hands clasped, the steam swirling around them. Then, slowly, carefully, David leaned closer. He gave her plenty of time to pull away, to say no, to maintain the boundary they had been carefully dancing around. But Anna didn't want boundaries anymore. She was tired of playing it safe, tired of protecting herself from possibilities. She leaned in too, and when their lips met, it felt like coming home and starting an adventure at the same time. The kiss was gentle at first, questioning, then deeper, more certain. The steam, the heat, the whole world seemed to fall away until there was only this moment. This connection. This feeling of finally being exactly where she was meant to be. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. David rested his forehead against hers, and Anna could feel him smiling. That was... He started. Yeah, Anna finished, unable to find better words. It really was. Anna woke up the next morning with her heart full and her mind racing. The night before replayed in her thoughts like a favorite song on repeat. After the steam room, she and David had walked through the resort gardens under the stars, talking and laughing, stealing kisses when they thought no one was looking. They had said goodnight outside her room, both reluctant to part ways but also wanting to take things slow, to savor each moment. But now, in the clear light of morning, reality was starting to creep in. Anna stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of questions she had been avoiding. What were they doing? What could this possibly become? In 3 days, She would go back to her life in the city. David would return to his. They lived hours apart, both with demanding careers and complicated histories. She picked up her phone and saw a text from her sister. "How's the solo healing retreat going? Found yourself yet?" Anna smiled despite her confusion. Found herself? Maybe. Found someone else too? Definitely. She typed back a simple response. "It's been interesting. I'll tell you everything when I get home." Times of dime. Times of dimes. At breakfast, Anna arrived to find David already waiting at their usual table. He stood when he saw her, and the smile on his face was so genuine, so warm, that it made her chest ache. How had this man become so important to her in such a short time? "Good morning," he said, pulling out her chair. "Good morning," she replied, trying to match his easy manner even though her thoughts were anything but simple. They filled their plates and settled in, but David must have noticed something was off. He set down his fork and looked at her with concern. "What's wrong?" Anna sighed. There was no point in pretending. "I'm thinking too much, that's all." "About us?" "About everything," she admitted. "About how good this feels and how complicated it could become. About how we live in different cities and have different lives. About whether I'm even ready for this or if I'm just caught up in the moment." David nodded slowly, as if he had been thinking similar thoughts. "I won't lie and say I haven't thought about all of that too. But can I tell you what I've concluded?" "Please." "I think we're overthinking it," he said simply. "We have 3 more days here. Why don't we just enjoy them? No pressure, no promises about the future. Just 3 days of being honest about how we feel and seeing where it goes. The rest we can figure out later." Anna wanted to argue, to point out all the logical reasons why this was a bad idea. But looking at David, at the hope and understanding in his eyes, she found she didn't want to be logical. She wanted to be brave. She wanted to choose the possibility of something beautiful over the safety of nothing at all. "Okay," she said. 3 days. No overthinking. David grinned. "Deal." They spent the morning hiking to a waterfall David had read about in the resort guide. The trail was longer and more challenging than the ones they had taken before. Winding through dense forest and over rocky terrain, they helped each other over difficult sections, and with each shared moment of trust, Anna felt her walls coming down a little more. The waterfall, when they finally reached it, was breathtaking. Water cascaded down smooth rocks into a crystal-clear pool, surrounded by moss-covered stones and wildflowers. They sat on the edge, taking off their shoes and dipping their feet in the cold water. "I'm glad I'm not doing this alone," Anna said, watching the water rush over her toes. "Me too," David agreed. "Though I have to admit, my original plan for this trip was pretty solitary. Lots of reading, lots of thinking, maybe some hiking by myself. What changed?" He looked at her with those warm eyes. A booking error and a woman who was kind enough to share a steam room. They stayed at the waterfall for hours, talking about their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. David told her about growing up in a small town, about always feeling like he was meant for something bigger but not knowing what. Anna shared stories about her strict parents, about the pressure to be perfect, about learning to follow rules instead of her heart. "Is that why you stayed in your marriage so long?" David asked gently. "Because it was the right thing to do?" Anna considered this. "Partly. But also because I was scared. I kept thinking, what if I'm making a mistake? What if I regret leaving? What if I can't make it on my own? And now—" "Do you regret it?" "Not for a second," Anna said firmly. "The only thing I regret is not trusting myself sooner." David took her hand. "I think you're one of the bravest people I've ever met." "Why? Because I got divorced?" "Because you chose yourself," he said. "Because you walked away from something comfortable but wrong, and decided to find out what right might feel like. That takes courage most people don't have." Anna felt tears prick her eyes. She had spent so many months feeling like a failure, like she had given up too easily. Hearing David frame it differently, seeing her choice through his eyes, shifted something inside her. On the walk back, they held hands the entire way. When they reached the resort, instead of going their separate ways, David asked if she wanted to have dinner in the village again. Anna agreed immediately. They found a different restaurant this time. A small Italian place with checkered tablecloths and candles dripping wax. Over pasta and wine, the conversation turned to the future they had agreed not to overthink. "Can I ask you something?" Anna said, twirling spaghetti on her fork. "Anything. What do you want, David? Not just here, not just this week, but in life. What would make you truly happy?" He thought about this. Really thought about it. "I want to make art that matters," he finally said. "Not to everyone. Maybe not even to many people. But to create something that connects with others, that makes them feel something. And I want to share my life with someone who understands that passion, who has their own dreams, and isn't afraid to chase them." "That doesn't seem like too much to ask," Anna said softly. "What about you? What do you want?" Anna had to think about her answer. For so long, she had defined herself by what others wanted from her. Her parents' expectations, her ex-husband's needs, her career's demands. "I want to design buildings that inspire people," she said. "Spaces that make them feel something, that improve their lives. And I want someone in my life who sees me, really sees me. Not just the version I think I should be." Their eyes met across the table, and the understanding that passed between them needed no words. They were both dreamers, both healers, both looking for something real, in a world that often felt fake. After dinner, they walked slowly back to the resort, neither wanting the evening to end. The night was clear. Stars scattered across the sky like diamonds. They stopped in the gardens, finding a bench, tucked away in a quiet corner. "I need to be honest with you," Anna said, her voice shaking slightly. "Okay," David replied, concern crossing his face. "I'm terrified. This week has been amazing, and you've been incredible, and I haven't felt this alive in years, but I'm scared of getting hurt again. I'm scared that we'll go back to our real lives, and this will all fade away like a dream. I'm scared that I'm setting myself up for heartbreak." "Also," David pulled her closer. "I'm scared too," he admitted. "I'm scared that I'm not enough, that the distance will be too much, that you'll realize you're better off without the complication. But I'm more scared of letting fear make my decisions. I did that for too long with my last relationship, always playing it safe, and it cost me years of my life. So what do? We be scared together," he said. "We be honest. We try. And if it doesn't work out, at least we'll know we gave it a real chance." Anna leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "I want to try," she whispered. "So do I." They sat there under the stars, holding each other, both knowing that choosing each other meant choosing uncertainty. But maybe that was okay. Maybe the best things in life weren't the ones you could plan and control. Maybe they were the ones you stumbled into with an open heart and a willingness to be brave. That night, Anna fell asleep thinking not about all the ways this could go wrong, but about all the ways it might go right. For once, fear wasn't the loudest voice in her head. Hope was, and that made all the difference. Anna woke on her last full day at the resort with a bittersweet feeling in her chest. Tomorrow, she would pack her bags, check out, and return to her regular life. The thought of leaving felt wrong somehow, like walking away from something unfinished. She met David for breakfast, and she could see the same mix of emotions in his eyes. They had spent every day together, building something neither could quite name. Now they were running out of time. "So," David said, pushing his eggs around his plate, "have you thought about what happens next?" "I've thought about little else," Anna admitted. "Have you?" He nodded. "I think we should try. Really try. I know the distance is difficult, and our lives are complicated, but I don't want to walk away from this without giving it a real chance." Anna felt relief wash over her. She had been hoping he would say something like that but had been too afraid to bring it up first. "I want to try too, but we need to be realistic. How often can we actually see each other?" They spent breakfast making plans. David's work as a photographer, gave him some flexibility. He could adjust his schedule, take projects in her city when possible. Anna had vacation days she hadn't used in years. They could trade off visiting each other, maybe one weekend a month to start. They would video call regularly. Stay connected. Be patient with the process. It won't be easy. David said. Nothing worthwhile ever is, Anna replied. They decided to spend their last day doing all the things they had grown to love. They hiked in the morning, finding a new trail that led to a lookout point with views that seemed to stretch forever. They had lunch at the cafe in town, sitting at the same table they had occupied days before, marveling at how much had changed in such a short time. In the afternoon, they returned to the art studio. This time, David brought his camera. He showed Anna how to see the world through a lens, how to find beauty in unexpected places. She photographed flowers, shadows on stone paths, the way sunlight filtered through leaves. Through the viewfinder, she started to understand what David loved about this art. It was about paying attention, about finding magic in ordinary moments. You have a good eye, David said, looking through the photos she had taken. I had a good teacher, Anna replied. As the sun began to set, they made their way to the spa one last time. The steam room had become their special place, where everything had begun. It felt fitting to return there on their final evening. Inside, the familiar warmth welcomed them. They settled onto the bench, sitting close, David's arm around Anna's shoulders. The steam rose around them, creating their own private world. I don't want tomorrow to come, Anna said quietly. Me neither. But maybe that's a good sign. It means this mattered. It means we're not ready for it to end. Do you think we can really make this work? Anna asked, voicing the doubt that had been nagging at her. David turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. I can't promise it will be easy. I can't promise we won't have hard days, or that the distance won't be frustrating, but I can promise I'll try with everything I have. I can promise to be honest, to show up, to not run when things get difficult. That's all any of us can really promise. It is. Anna felt tears on her cheeks, though she wasn't sure if they were happy or sad, maybe both. That's enough, she said. That's more than enough. They stayed in the steam room until their session ended, neither wanting to leave. When they finally stepped back out into the cool evening air, it felt like emerging from a dream into reality. But this time, reality didn't seem so bad. This time, they were facing it together. For their last dinner, they ordered room service and ate on the balcony of David's room, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. They talked about everything and nothing, sometimes falling into comfortable silences, sometimes laughing at shared jokes that had developed over the week. Can I tell you something? Anna said as they finished their meal. Always. When I booked this trip, I was running away. From my failed marriage, from my disappointment in myself, from my fear that I would never feel whole again. But you helped me realize I wasn't broken, I was just lost. And maybe finding yourself isn't about being alone. Maybe sometimes it's about letting someone else see you clearly. David reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You did the same for me. I came here empty, questioning everything I thought I knew about myself. You reminded me what it feels like to be excited about life again. To want to create, to connect, to take risks. They moved to the couch, sitting wrapped in each other's arms, neither ready to say goodnight. The hours passed too quickly. And eventually, Anna knew she needed to go back to her own room to pack. At her door, they stood facing each other, neither wanting to let go. This isn't goodbye, David said firmly. This is see you soon. See you soon, Anna repeated. And they kissed, long and deep. A kiss that held all the promise of what they were building together. The next morning came too quickly. Anna finished packing, checked out of her room, and met David in the lobby. He was waiting with his own bags, looking just as reluctant to leave as she felt. They loaded their cars, which were parked side by side in the lot. Before getting in, they shared one more embrace, one more kiss. 2 weeks, David said. I'll come to you in 2 weeks. I'll be counting the days, Anna replied. She watched him drive away first, his car disappearing down the winding mountain road. Then she got into her own car. But before starting the engine, she sat for a moment, looking back at the resort that had changed her life. She had come here broken and alone, expecting to spend a week in solitude. Instead, she was leaving with hope, with excitement for the future, with the phone number of a man who had seen her at her most vulnerable and hadn't turned away. The drive home was long, giving her plenty of time to think. She thought about the risks they were taking, about the challenges ahead. Long-distance relationships were hard. They would have to be patient, understanding, willing to work through difficulties. But for the first time in years, Anna felt like something was worth fighting for. When she finally pulled into her apartment parking lot, her sister was waiting outside, leaning against her car with a knowing smile. "So?" her sister said as Anna got out. "How was your solo healing retreat?" Anna laughed, pulling her sister into a hug. "It was exactly what I needed. Just not in the way I expected." Over coffee, she told her sister everything. About the booking mix-up, about David, about the connection that had grown between them, about the plans they had made. Her sister listened carefully, and when Anna finished, she simply smiled. "I'm proud of you," she said. "You could have kept your walls up. You could have played it safe. But you chose to be brave." That night, Anna unpacked her bags and settled back into her apartment. It looked the same as when she had left, but she felt different. She felt hopeful. Her phone buzzed with a text from David. "Made it home. Already missing you. Can't wait for 2 weeks from now." Anna smiled, typing back, "Same here." "And David? Thank you. For everything. Thank you for sharing the steam room," he replied, and she could almost hear his laugh. 2 weeks later, David came to visit. Then Anna went to see him. They fell into a rhythm, finding ways to stay connected despite the distance. They video called during morning coffee, sent photos throughout the day, talked every night before bed. On weekends, they could be together. They explored each other's cities, building memories and deepening their connection. It wasn't always easy. There were missed calls and misunderstandings, times when the distance felt impossible. But they talked through every difficulty, learning to communicate, learning to trust. They celebrated David's new photography exhibition, showcasing work that captured the beauty he had rediscovered. They toasted when Anna won a contract to design a community center, a project that excited her more than anything had in years. 6 months after that first meeting in the steam room, David suggested they return to the resort for their anniversary. Anna agreed immediately. Walking back into that lobby felt like coming full circle. The same kind receptionist greeted them, smiling as if she had known all along how their story would unfold. They spent the weekend hiking trails, eating at their favorite spots in town, and yes, visiting the steam room. But this time, there was no uncertainty, no fear. There was just the deep comfort of being with someone who knew you and chose you anyway. On their last evening, sitting in their special spot in the gardens, David took Anna's hands in his. "I know we said we'd take things one day at a time," he started. "But I need to tell you something. These past 6 months have been the happiest of my life. Not because it's been easy, but because it's been real. You're the person I want to call when something good happens. You're the one I want beside me during hard times. You're home to me, Anna." Anna felt tears streaming down her face, happy tears this time. "You're home to me too. I'm not asking for anything to change right now," David continued. "I know we both need our independence, our careers, our space. But I'm saying that I'm in this, really in this, for as long as you'll have me." "That might be a very long time," Anna said, laughing through her tears. "I'm counting on it." They sat under the stars, the same stars that had witnessed the beginning of their story, now watching as they promised each other a future. It wasn't perfect. It wouldn't always be easy, but it was real, and it was theirs, and that made it perfect enough. Anna thought about the woman who had arrived at this resort 6 months ago, scared and broken, and convinced she needed to be alone to heal. She wanted to tell that woman that healing sometimes looked different than expected, that being open to possibilities, even scary ones, could lead to something beautiful. That choosing love again, even after heartbreak, wasn't weakness but the greatest strength of all. As they walked back to their room that night, hand in hand, Anna realized something important. She had come here looking for herself, and she had found herself, but she had also found someone who helped her become an even better version of who she was meant to be. And that was worth every risk, every uncertainty, every moment of fear. The steam had filled the room that first night, obscuring vision, creating uncertainty. But through the mist, they had found each other, and that chance encounter, that moment of unexpected connection, had changed everything. Sometimes the best stories begin with a simple mix-up, a shared space, and two hearts brave enough to see where the journey might lead. Sometimes you find exactly what you need when you stop looking and start living. Sometimes love arrives not with trumpets and fanfare, but with quiet certainty in a steam-filled room, where two broken people realize they could help each other become whole again.